So Kathleen Kennedy, as I mentioned at the top of the show, has been, she's been making comments. She's been out. People have been talking about her. People have been asking questions because her contract is coming up. The end of her contract is coming up. It ends
just like Bob Iger.
2021, just like Iger.
Yeah.
Their contracts are coming up and hasn't been extended yet.
Kevin Feige got the extension.
Well, Kevin Feige, they're going to extend him. They have to extend Kevin
contract.
Feige. Yeah, the Marvel Studios, president of Marvel Studios. I mean, he's of course he's going to get an extension. But right. Kathleen Kennedy has not gotten an extension. She was asked about it actually.
That's gotta be weird.
Yeah, she was asked directly about it. I believe I know it's in that article from the Hollywood Reporter.
Right.
And she said, she's like, "Oh, ask for my future." And I'm paraphrasing, but she said something along the lines of, basically my future with this company. Honestly, like whether I want to keep doing this or what my future holds, I don't know at this point. That's basically what she said.
That's wild.
Which is like, wow, okay, so I guess she may be leaving soon.
Right.
That's basically what it sounds like. And now look, I try to, I don't like, jumping on hate bandwagons usually.
Right.
But I mean, with Kathleen Kennedy, I feel, and I do want to compare this to Marvel Studios. Because Marvel Studios, of course, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're aware of Marvel Studios. They make great movies. They have a very well connected universe. And the person that's, at the head of the ship right now, Kevin Feige, is a huge fan. Huge, massive, super fan.
Right.
Of these stories.
Stan Lee is his idol.
Stan Lee is his idol. So he's a super fan of this content. Along with George Lucas. And he's making a Star Wars movie as well. So, I mean, he's a super fan of this stuff. And so, that he's coming into these stories with a particular amount of care and carefulness and thought. It's not just, he's not just a business person.
Right.
Like, he has business, requirements.
He has some savvy, obviously.
He has he has to have some kind of business acumen and some kind of, he has to have that kind of mind.
Right.
Because he is running this particular business. But he is also loyal to the fans. He wants to create.
He's a fan himself.
He's a fan himself. He wants to create memorable, good stories for the fans to enjoy. He wants it to make sense. He doesn't want to piss off the fans, even if it's gonna make him more money somehow. He wants to just make content that the fans enjoy.
Yeah,
that's his goal. And a lot of people with Kathleen Kennedy worry about that. You wonder. Is she just like, oh, well, people love the extended universe. Well, no, we're getting rid of all that. People, are curious about Snoke. Let's focus more on Rey, Palpatine, all this other stuff. And
Right.
it's like I want someone that
people
cares
want
about
Obi-Wan.
the stories.
No.
People want Obi-Wan. No. It's like,
give him Solo.
People are curious about, interested in prequel content. No. It's like, no. Like, you want someone who's going to approach this material and try to make the best story possible, the most exciting story possible, and include all the content that the fans want. And I question whether Kathleen Kennedy has those particular intentions in mind. I do. I'm being completely honest. I feel like her intention right now is to make a lot of money, which is, fair enough. Of course, everyone who doesn't want that, So there's nothing wrong with that in particular. But I feel like her creative, and I question whether she even really has creative intentions.
Yeah.
I don't know if she is a creative. I don't think she is a creative.
Right.
I don't think she creates Star Wars stories. I don't think that's something that she's ever done. I don't think that's something that she has any particular interest in doing. I think she approaches this from a business perspective,
right,
like an executive at any film company.
Right.
She approaches any creative project from a business perspective.
So then, where does the issue lie for you in that model?
I think that leads to the kind of disjointed,
the
chaotic stories that make sense, but are just things like Episode 7, where it's just at the end of the day, you feel like if you're a heavy Star Wars fan, you've seen this movie before. Stuff like that doesn't happen when you have a super fan driving the car, know?
And then even beyond that, like, the amount of filmmakers that she's worked with, since Disney and Star Wars have had since Disney bought Star Wars is, and look, I mean, Kevin Feige's worked with a lot of filmmakers, but just no continuity in anything, and no continuity, and it's never been on the same page with almost any of them besides JJ,
right,
and maybe Rian Johnson. But even then, we don't know if you gave Rian Johnson a trilogy. We don't know if that's happening. Brought in Colin Trevorrow, got rid of him. You brought in Gareth Edwards midway through production. You kind of told him to go home. Got rid of Lord and Miller. Brought in Ron Howard. Got rid of Josh Trank, whatever movie he was going to make, and just axed that. Had a Benioff and Weiss trilogy. Then it became one movie. Now it's not happening at all. Like, all these filmmakers, like, it's just it's an alarming trend, and I just don't think that happens if you have somebody who has a clear and distinct vision for what they want to do. She doesn't have that. She wants people giving her ideas. It's like, give me an idea. Oh, that sounds cool. And then, but then you're like, never mind, this doesn't work. Or, your idea doesn't necessarily fit what we wanted to do, or what someone else told me we should do. And that's when you get that chaos. Right. Kevin Feige knows exactly what he wants to do.
Knows exactly.
So he knows if your plan doesn't fit with my plan, it's not a good match.
Right.
I need you to make my movie. That's not what Kathleen Kennedy's thing is.
And, I feel like, Feige, I feel like he has, some amount of experience in just in telling, in storytelling in general. I feel like I get that sense from him, even if it isn't in an official sense.
Right.
I feel like he had created some of these stories in his head already.
He has to.
Because
the Marvel universe is too vast, and it's too linear, and the stories are too deep.
Yeah, and this is good. Honestly, this is going to lead into our next topic as well. He draws from source material.
Right.
He draws from other material,
adds to
it, and gives it flavor. He's in tune with the fans and what's good and what's not.
Now, what's one thing that's in the Hollywood Reporter expose on Kathleen Kennedy is,
yes,
look, they talk about Jon Favreau.
They did.
He's going to have a major role going forward in the Star Wars world, as well as Dave Filoni and Michelle Rizwan.
Yes.
Rizwan obviously was the Kathleen Kennedy appointee from a couple months ago. She's going to be running all of the live-action content at Lucasfilm. Dave Filoni is the animation wizard, George Lucas' protege, who's worked on Clone Wars and Rebels, and has worked on some of The Mandalorian. And obviously, Jon Favreau, showrunner for The Mandalorian. But I'm interested to see what that means, because if we're talking about successors, the way they framed it almost framed it as if like those three could be in
it was gonna be a triumvirate,
right? That those three may
replace
be like
the three heads.
Yeah, that could replace Kathleen Kennedy as one. And if you're telling me it is a triumvirate, I am somewhat comfortable with that, because it's three different heads. I mean, they all kind of specialize in their own thing, so I think it could make sense. I don't know if any one of them could do the exact role, or at least fit, because like Michelle Rizwan is Kathleen Kennedy 2.0 as far as that. I mean, I'm not super familiar with her stuff, but she, in terms of like her background, I don't know. She doesn't come from a Star Wars background. Like, she's more of a movie producer or a television producer. So like, she can do the business side of it and the production side of it, but in terms of being a Star Wars person, she doesn't have that track record. Filoni has the Star Wars track record. I mean, like I say, the George Lucas protege. He's worked on, for years, decades worth of Star Wars content. Like, he can make
directly with George Lucas for several years.
Right, exactly. He's, like I say, he's an animation wizard. Rebels and Clone Wars are beloved. My only issue is, obviously he doesn't have the live action experience as much, and it's a much bigger thing that he'd have to watch over, so like, and he doesn't have necessarily the business acumen, at least that experience that someone like Rizwan or Kathleen Kennedy would have. And Favreau, my only thing with Favreau is that, look, he's kind of just come in. You know, and he's been around Star Wars. Like, you know, he's been a part of the Clone Wars, and you know, he's a part of Mandalorian now. And Mandalorian is great, but I would just caution Disney to say, don't say just because the Mandalorian is great. Let's have Favreau do all Star Wars. Like, let's just craft Star Wars in Favreau's vision, because not everything in Star Wars is going to be like the Mandalorian.
Yes.
You know, like the Mandalorian is a pocket in the Star Wars universe.
Right.
Just like, you know, Obi-Wan is going to be a pocket in the Star Wars universe, just like Rogue One was a pocket in the Star Wars universe. And Favreau is great, but I don't know if I would say, you know, all right, now we have to give him all Star Wars. I would give him more Mandalorian, you know, or more things like the Mandalorian, but so I don't know. But that's why I say I think all three of them together, I think it makes sense. I think Filoni is the guy that I would probably want doing the most general Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
You know, because he has that feel for it. But, you know, it makes sense, all three of them.
Yeah. And you know, look, the person at the top of my list is always going to be Filoni. I just feel like he's earned my trust.
Yes.
In that he knows how to tell good Star Wars stories. You know, he just understands Star Wars at its core, the heart, the soul, the passion for it, the storytelling, the mysticism, the science, everything surrounding it. He seems to have a very good understanding of all of it. And he has a deep passion for the project, for Star Wars. Does Kathleen Kennedy have a deep passion for Star Wars? I don't know. I know she knows it makes her a lot of money. Not to say that she does. I don't
she
mean
does
to say
at this point, just because she's like running Lucasfilm. But like, does she have a deep passion like from I read and watch everything Star Wars?
I mean, she helped create Star Wars with George Lucas,
right?
Because she worked with George Lucas on Star Wars,
right?
So I'm sure she has some kind of connection to it emotionally,
right?
But I mean, to the point where, to the level of other like fans like us, fans like Dave, you know, fans like Favreau,
Pablo Hidalgo, you know,
fans like Hidalgo, you know, does she have that level to like that level? And I don't think so, or I question that, you know, and I think that is, I think that would just benefit the whole fan base.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this podcast segment, be sure to check out all of our shows on the New Generation Podcast Network on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Stitcher.